Hi, I'm working on the next part, which I suppose would be part four of my building my dream city builder, which is going to be focusing on
Developers.
and zoning. However, I had some leftovers from my last video, which I had to cut for time reasons. I put this up on my Patreon for my Patreons to see, and I quickly recording this video just to recap some things and to go into a little bit more detail about my POPs system. Again, a lot of this is work in progress, but I just wanted to essentially get this off my chest. So, on the left, we have the city. On the right, we have a person or an agent or POPs, we should say in this case. Now, both a city and POPs will need food, electricity, water, money, and some form of waste management. This is the classics of a city builder. And of course, the agent or the POPs will need housing, work, consumer goods, and transportation. Again, these are quite common for city builders. Maybe not so much consumer goods, but I do want to simulate the need for consumer goods. Something else that a lot of city builders will simulate is happiness. Again, this is quite simple. If they're in a nice area, they are happy. If they're in a polluted area, they're unhappy. Another metric I would like to track actually is POP's free time. I believe this is a much better indication of if a POP is happy or not, because free time directly links into their housing, their work, their transportation, and it feeds into happiness. I believe that maybe recording free time as a metric in my city builder would be a lot more realistic. Cities that have more easy public transportation, better work hours, better working conditions typically have more free time. People who have insecure housing or worse work or less access to good jobs tend to have less free time, which will impact their happiness. Then the city has a requirement as well. Cities normally need raw resources. They need workers to collect the raw resources and to build up investment. And with all the raw resources, workers, investment, cities will need management, which the city will do. And here we're seeing a sort of Venn diagram form, and this is how I'm identifying what POPs and a city needs. And my goal with my simulation is to create a self-sustaining loop where the city provides the housing, work, consumer goods, transportation to the people collect raw resources, they are the workers, they also help with the management. It will hopefully create a fun cyclical system. Again, this is very high level, and this is more of a cut from an existing video, but I just wanted to quickly explain this, and I'll go into more details once the system is built. And that goes into my population system, where I'm going to show you essentially cut content from my previous video. Again, this is available on my Patreon, but I'm now also putting it in this video as well. Right now I'm working with the idea of POPs. So instead of just like low income, high income workers, we have, you know, the statistical groups. So POPs are groups defined by their profession, culture, religion, and state of residence and workplace. And like everything, they're statistical stocks. So they have like a standard of living, wealth, and qualifications that they have. And this will allow them to migrate place to place. But another reason I really wanted to have a POP system was because I want POPs to naturally congregate together. Like, in real life, we have neighborhoods, and some neighborhoods are very dictated by the local industry. And again, I want to build a demographic and economic engine with zero per person simulation. So I'm going for a three-axis approach with my POPs. Now, I should mention everything here is still work in progress, but I have documented this and I will start prototyping this very soon. So axis one is the life cycle. I don't want to go through each one of these POPs, but each point, but we have children, students, and the working age retired. And again, what I really want to do is be able to, use these to develop interesting, districts. Like you could have a uni town that's filled with students. You could have maybe a retirement village, and they would actually attract different types of pops because of the services that you offer. So, like the retired would like to live near better healthcare access and less traffic and a bit more sleepy, while students want to live in like a university city, like a cool metropolitan area, that kind of example. Then we have access to the education. The education I have not fully fleshed out yet. Something that I'm hyper aware of, and again, I don't want to list out all of this. This is just a lot of this is just from my own my own reasoning. But something that I want to be very careful of is I don't want an education trap. And what I call the education trap is I remember in most city builders, I wanted a more quote unquote working class town. However, in most city builders, to make anything that is working class or even slightly lower, you have to deliberately underschool it, under police it, which I really dislike that idea. I want, there are working class towns all over the world, but they still have access to education. They still have access to policing and healthcare. So I want to be able to build a system where the education, you know, doesn't fully dictate just your status in life, because that's quite unrealistic. Like I know people with university degrees who work in, more manual labor jobs, and I know people who have almost no formal education and are millionaires. So I kind of want to be able to simulate, I want to be able to simulate, the boom and bust loop where, if there are not enough high paying jobs for the highly educated, they will leave. Just as, people who did not go for the highest tertiary education, they want employment. And if they can't find it, they will leave. And this will hopefully lead to a more natural boom and bust loop. And then we have access three. What I really want to focus on here is that districts will help inform where pops want to live, and pops will live in places that better matches their status in life. But I do want to be able to also simulate upward mobility. I don't want people to be locked in forever. I do want the city to feel like it's growing and it's building. Again, this is work in progress. These are some of the worker pop types I'm thinking about doing. So we would have stuff like laborers, machinists, miners and seasonal workers, shopkeepers, clerks, professionals, and civic workers. There will be more, obviously, but I'm trying to very generically group these together. And some other population types I want to simulate, and I'm trying to build them in early so they're not like an afterthought. Tourists, I think tourists are a big part of cities, especially cities that have a lot of beautiful natural points of interest. I want to be able to simulate external commuters. So if your city does not have enough highly educated or does not have enough people who are willing to do seasonal work, they would actually come into the city to work. I also want to simulate, sort of in addition to that, would be economic migrants, people who come to your city for work, add pressure to the system that you need to be able to account for. And lastly, the homeless. I'm still working on the sort of mathematics there. I want to be very careful with it. I understand, I believe as a SimCity, the 2013, the last SimCity, um, they tried to do homelessness and it was really bad. And I definitely don't want to have a system like that. But I am also trying to account for that. Again, I want to be able to have it so with your decisions, you could accidentally create homeless people, but it would be a slow burn. It wouldn't happen just because you quickly destroy a district, but it would happen if you were not careful. So, some other things I'm doing. Again, these are like just some bullet points. I will go into these in other videos, but I want to just talk about it now, kind of get people excited, give you and give you a look behind the curtain. Money exists, so obviously, I want roads to cost money, build and maintain. I want zoning to be real, I want real districts, all that kind of stuff. And I want enum zoning rules. The enum zoning rules, what I want to explain is I'm looking at a sort of Japanese way of deciding zoning, where they actually basically have a huge table, and technically they can have zoning that does everything. Now, you wouldn't want this, but this is sort of the example of the player choice I want. I want the player to be able to make their own zone types, and if they want to stick the huge mining operation next to a village, more power to them. Land has value, obviously, desirability, accessibility, and by the way, land can also lose value, like in the mining example I just showed. The market exists. I want real firms. I say real firms. I want simulated firms to bid on land. I want the land to belong to firms or people, and I want there to be a bid ledger. I think that'll be really interesting to see how different NPC development agencies would actually bid on land and stuff like that. Obviously, money will flow both ways. So, you make money through land sales, there'll be a transaction tax, impact fees, and all that. As I say, resource mines, oil depletion, the landscape changes. That's something I really want to happen. I want the landscape to change. If you need to mine out of the ground, you can, but the landscape will be impacted. The city evolves, obviously. I want to have redevelopment, decay, bankruptcy, large minings. I want firms to enter and exit. So, like the mining example, when your mine is depleted, there are going to be some firms that maybe require that mine and they might exit because it's been depleted. Or you may run out of highly educated workers and firms may exit because of that. And as I say, the policy, the per use tax rates, subsidies, and all that stuff. Congestion charging, that's something else I want to look into. Again, this isn't like unique to me. It's just I think one of the interesting things I'm doing, you know, and there's other things I could talk about, like services and people, how growth is going to be governed by like a rent governor, how I'm going to close the loop between property tax, road maintenance, and how the city can run a surplus or deficit, and how to differentiate buildings. Thanks for watching. I hope that this smaller video might be interesting for some people. It's not as in depth as my other videos, and everything I did talk about was quite work in progress. But if you have anything to say, please leave a comment, or you can join me on my Discord, where there's a lot of people leaving great suggestions and having really good conversations about essentially all aspects of a city builder.